Immediate spoilers for Danganronpa. You have been warned.
But if you don't care about Danganronpa or spoilers, then please watch this video to help us with the algorithm. Love you lots!
Alright, so picture this. You watched and/or played a game series that spans across 4.5 games, a few light novels, and a canonical anime. The games in this series are super long, and thus you have spent a good chunk of your life within the world of these games, getting invested in the characters, the story, the mystery, the twists, and all that fun stuff. You've gone through the bittersweet experience of getting a favorite character only to see them die. And I know for a fact that this happened to you at least once. More than anything, you went through the experience of going through this tale that ended up being so much bigger than you thought it would be at the start, feeling all types of emotions. You laughed, you cried, you memed, you felt huge senses of accomplishment as well as rage. And if you're really into it, probably went through the 5 stages of grief. Okay, so imagine all of that, only to be told within the last 2 or 3 hours of the final official canonical game of the series that everything you went through never happened. Full of despair yet? Well, welcome to Danganronpa. Hello everyone, my name's Aloubell, and to be honest, the twist at the end of Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony initially bothered me, but after thinking about it for a bit, I realized that it didn't really matter. What I mean is, even if the story pulled a "it was all a dream" or "those were fictional characters that never really happened" kind of nonsense, if you really think about it, it's all a story. It's all fiction, so what does it matter if the story we experienced never happened or not? I mean, none of it really happened. It's not like the events in V3 used real people in our world or anything. The story of V3 didn't happen either. They are also fictional characters, so telling me that the first 3 games in the Danganronpa 3 anime never happened doesn't mean anything because none of it actually happened. I went through the experience of getting to know the world of Danganronpa, its story, its characters, and mysteries, and that final twist in V3 doesn't take away from that at all. It doesn't take away my enjoyment and the excitement or disappointment or any of that because Danganronpa is still Danganronpa. Trigger Happy Havoc still happened, Goodbye Despair still happened, Ultra Despair Girl still happened, Danganronpa 3 still happened. Killing Harmony still happened. It all happened because I sat and experienced all of it. A story is still a story, even if it's a story inside of a story. Telling me that something didn't actually happen really only holds weight for events in the real world. Like, if someone said that Martin Luther King Jr. was never killed and that was just a story created by whoever and Dr. King is still alive somewhere, then that would make me feel some type of way, but not something like a fictional story that was always meant to be fictional. Hey guys, this is Aloe in the editing process. After thinking about it, there is actually an instance within a fictional story itself during which the whole "it was all a dream" does hold some type of weight. It's like during the Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2 movie, spoilers for that by the way, during which we get this whole epic fight scene with actual consequences, only to find out that it never actually happened. It was just a vision. Yes, we still got to experience that awesome battle, and it being a vision doesn't take away from that fact, but I guess this is different from how V3 went about its never actually happened thing because of how long the never actually happened bit was and where it's placed in context. For Twilight, a battle was anticipated and then shown to us for maybe 20 minutes at best, I've never timed it, and then promptly told that it didn't happen despite all of the build-up, which led to disappointment from audience members. It was the feeling of being robbed of something they felt they were owed from having to sit for way too long waiting for something cool to happen, only for the writers, director, or whoever to say, "Nope, not today." For Killing Harmony, we didn't have that kind of setup. We went through games that took between maybe 11 and 20 or even 30 something hours to play, games that went through story arcs and changes in status quo and so many other things. And then V3 rolls around with a completely different cast that is so far removed from the original cast The story itself is so far removed from the original story that it didn't completely matter if the stuff before V3 never actually happened, because it has no real consequence on V3 itself. The stuff before V3 didn't affect V3, and V3 had no effect on the stuff before it. If that sounded confusing, I apologize, but that's the easiest way for me to explain why these kinds of similar twists are different. Anyway, back to the main video. Now, having said all of that, I know that there are many people out there who were quite frustrated with the end of V3 specifically because of that twist, and I get that. Personally speaking, killing Harmony, despite having Best Boy and some legitimately fun parts, is not my favorite game in the series, but my qualms with it don't really have anything to do with the twist so much. I have other issues with it as well, but this video is not a V3 review. It's me calling out the game for lying to us. Yes, the game lied to us, which really shouldn't be much of a shocker considering truth and lies were a constant theme throughout the game. Riddle me this, Batman. Why should I believe the mastermind, Tsumugi Shirogane, when she said that all of the games, light novels, and anime were fictional? Did she not spend the entire game lying to us and all of the other characters? Did she not reveal herself to be unhinged and perfectly okay with killing off her fellow classmates / game contestants? So why, oh why, should I believe her?
That's an easy one, Aloe. Tsumugi suffers from cospox, which only happens when she cosplays as a real person. Therefore, if she was able to successfully cosplay as the characters in previous games, then that must mean that they don't exist.
No it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. Once again, Tsumugi could be lying to us about her condition. During the final trial, we see Tsumugi transforming into people bigger than her, smaller than her, and with completely different clothes and even skin tones than her. She transforms in the blink of an eye. So if Tsumugi is able to change her skin tone, seemingly at will, then it stands within reason that she can make her skin turn reddish pink whenever she cosplays as certain people.
Okay, that might be true, but what about the audition tapes? Tsumugi proved to the survivors that they were completely different people who voluntarily signed up to be a part of the killing game. So she couldn't have lied about that.
Have you forgotten that almost every game, light novel, and anime series in the Danganronpa canon consists of memory wiping / altercation as well as brainwashing technology? Tsumugi and Team Danganronpa could have easily used said technology to make them say those things in those videos. This technology is capable of both giving and taking away talents. Sure, it's up in the air what's fabricated and what's not when it comes to the students themselves, even down to whether or not they actually had ultimate talents or not, but that's just the thing. Reality is not certain here.
But Tsumugi mentioned that everything that happened in the killing game was planned, even Kaito's sickness and Maki falling in love with him.
To be fair, she never showed proof of that being planned. We didn't see a script or an outline of the show's plans, and even if we did, those could have been fabricated as well. It's easy to say that something was planned after the fact, so again, this could be a lie. This is especially true if you consider the events that happened in the game. If everything was truly planned, then how did Tsumugi allow herself to lose? How did she allow Rantaro to almost figure things out way back in Chapter 1? If she and Team Danganronpa had so much control to the point where they could control a living being's feelings, then surely there should be no cracks in the system.
But Aloe, as smart as Tsumugi and her writing team are, they are only human, so it makes sense if she made a mistake.
That's true, I guess, but there's too much evidence suggesting that the everything before this was fictional thing was a lie. Like, for one thing, Tsumugi herself is an ultimate. She's the ultimate cosplayer, which she has proven. But if Danganronpa is fake, then how does an ultimate with her abilities exist in the quote-unquote real world?
Simple! You said it yourself. Technology exists to give people ultimate abilities. So she could have gotten her talent from that very same technology.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Look, it's not like I'm saying everything Tsumugi said was a lie, just the Danganronpa's fictional bit. Obviously, she was telling the truth about the audience watching the killing game, as we got to see an audience member reacting to the game from their point of view. outside of the students' knowledge. And we saw the audience members making comments about previous seasons of Danganronpa, so we know that the killing game has happened at least as many times as the game tells us it has. And sure, maybe all of the games, anime, and series that happened after Danganronpa 3 were fictional, but there's no real reason to believe that the actual stuff we experienced was also fictional. Slightly unrelated, but did anyone else find it weird that Tsumugi only transformed into the characters from the games we've experienced and none from the ones we haven't? From a video game making standpoint, I understand why they did that, because they wanted to only use characters the players recognized, but in universe, it doesn't make sense since she had years of content to choose from. Even if you ignore the seasons that used quote-unquote real people, sure, perhaps she was consciously just choosing her favorites or even the classic characters, which, fair, but it still seems odd to me. I think there was an in-game explanation for this, but it still seems weird. Like, it's not like the V3 cast would know which characters were from which game. Anyway, if you're enjoying this video, then give me hope by hitting that like button and subscribe for more reviews, rants, and rewrites. And if you're still watching, type out the words truth and lies in the comments. Thank you! So let's discuss the literary concept of death of the author. According to TV Tropes, which starts with a quote by Umberto Eco,
"A narrator should not supply interpretations of his work. Otherwise, he would not have written a novel, which is a machine for generating interpretations."
The article itself goes on to say, death of the author is a concept from mid-20th century literary criticism. It holds that an author's intentions and biographical facts, the author's politics, religion, etc., should hold no special weight in determining an interpretation of their writing. This is usually understood as meaning that a writer's views about their own work are no more or less valid than the interpretations of any given reader. Intentions are one thing. What was actually accomplished might be something very different. The logic behind the concept is very simple. Books are meant to be read, not written, so the ways readers interpret them are as important and real as the author's intention. On the flip side, a lot of authors are unavailable or unwilling to comment on their intentions, and even when they are, they don't always make choices for reasons that make sense or are easily explainable to others, or sometimes even to themselves. The short version of all of that just means that the intentions of an author or writer don't matter nearly as much as how the consumer interprets the work. Hey guys, this is Aloe once again in the editing process. So at about this time in the script, I was going to complain about a canon ship in a completely different anime due to how poorly it was developed in canon, and yet we're told by the creator that it was always meant to be. Death of the author applies here because I did not interpret this amazing love story that the author was attempting to sell us. But I decided to take that out of the video as to not start a ship war in the comments. And so with this, I shall leave you wondering as to which anime I was gonna talk about. Now let's get back to the main topic, shall we? On a less controversial note, it's similar to reading a poem and your interpretations of its meaning matters more than what the poet's intentions were. This is why it annoyed me in my English classes whenever a teacher or professor said that I or anyone else didn't understand its meaning. What does this have to do with Danganronpa? Well, the creator of Danganronpa, Kazutaka Kodaka, said that the events of V3 were not canon and occurred in an alternate universe than the original games and such. And while this provides some relief to the twist ending, since the events from the previous stories did still canonically occur, just in another universe, this was told to fans of the game outside of the context of the game itself. I don't know if you mentioned this before or after the game's release, but I can imagine that to some degree, it was said to appease the fans who would either be or were already ticked off from that twist ending. The ending of that TV Tropes article states, "Death of the author does not mean there is no such thing as canonicity for a work's events," which is a common misinterpretation of this theory used to justify canon defilement. Nor does it mean a creator's real-life opinions or behavior should have no bearing on whether people spend money on or enjoy their works. It only proposes that questions not explicitly answered by the text of the work cannot simply be resolved by word of God or by trying to guess the author's intention. Nowadays, we tend to get a lot of creators and writers adding tidbits of info from their story on social media outside of the context of the story. Some fans like when creators do this, and some fans don't, for varying reasons. But regardless of where you stand on the issue, the idea still sort of remains that if there is no evidence towards your claim within the story itself, then we have no reason to believe what you're saying. I mean, sure, you may know your characters more than we, the audience, do, and you are the story's creator, so what you say does hold some sort of weight, but we're technically under no obligation to believe you. Most will, but it's understandable if some don't. It's especially unfair in some circumstances when these tidbits aren't made known to some fans because they don't follow the creator's social media accounts, and thus won't get to know this potentially important detail. For Danganronpa, since this idea of alternate realities or whatever was not directly said in V3 itself, we, as an audience, are allowed to interpret the ending how we'd like. Besides, I think Kodaka was/is okay with people interpreting said ending because he knows for a fact that what's truth or fiction was left up in the air when the game ended. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a bad thing for authors to add on details of their story outside of the context of the story. I understand the appeal and I can see myself doing that exact same thing at some point as well. And usually, these tidbits aren't so important that the audience has to absolutely know about them to get the full experience of the story. But every now and then, something is said that is rather important. V3 not being canon is one of them. I honestly wonder how many fans don't know that the creator said this and just finished the series with a bad taste in their mouth. In any case, I personally am choosing to interpret V3 as such. V3 is canon to the original series, and the events of the original series still happened. How? Here's what I think happened. So, after the Danganronpa 3 anime ending, the world eventually fully recovered from the biggest, most awful, most tragic event in human history, and experienced a time of peace under the guidance of the survivors of Hope's Peak Academy. Because the Killing Games were broadcasted back when they occurred, many people in the world know about them as well as the mastermind Junko Enoshima. In efforts to make sure that no one ever falls into despair again, most people in the world make a conscious decision to just be decent people and did their best to make everything as nice, safe, and joyful as possible. But, as the years went on, like a lot of years, people became bored of the squeaky cleanliness of everything and yearned for excitement. Most of the people who experienced the tragedy were either really old or have died off. So, in order to add excitement into their lives, some game developers took inspiration from the footage of the Killing Games and made video games based off of them. In this way, Trigger Happy Havoc, Goodbye Despair, and everything were turned into games that were based off of the real events. And after this, year after year, more Danganronpa games were developed as society yearned for the chaos and excitement that came from the battle of hope versus despair. And eventually, Danganronpa was turned into a reality show in which real people could volunteer to be a part of the Killing Game. Since the technology already exists to remove/give memories and give talents, this was used on the volunteers to make the events of the game more genuine. I like to think that ultimates still exist in this world, such as Tsumugi being the ultimate cosplayer, but for the sake of having better control of the situation, Team Danganronpa only recruits talentless students and gives them whatever talents would make for an exciting season. In a sense, Junko inspired an entire movement of contained despair, where the people of the world could experience the high and unpredictability of despair from the comfort of their homes as they watch others try to survive. There is an illusion of hope with the manufactured survivors winning, but it isn't true hope. But hopefully, by the end of V3, the world starts to see the light and becomes a bit less messed up and no longer relies on dramatic displays of despair versus hope in order to feel alive. So yeah, that's my interpretation of V3, and I think it falls very much in line with what was shown to us. Honestly, if anything, the revelation of the events of V3 taking place so far into the future means that the cast can't canonically meet the cast of the past, but it is what it is. But, fortunately, we have Danganronpa S Ultimate Summer Camp to fulfill said wishes, so I'm good. In any case, what do you guys think? How do you feel about Killing Harmony's twist ending? Was it a satisfactory conclusion? Do you believe everything that the mastermind said? Or are you like me who takes everything she said with a grain of salt? Comment below and let's get this conversation started. By the way, are you hungry for even more Danganronpa content? Then please check out these other cool videos. And remember, I'm the artistic Aloubell, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it and subscribe for more reviews, rants, and rewrites. But as for now, that's all there is. There isn't any more.